Celebrating 46 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, an ag fraud murder mystery comes to an end. It's life in prison for a cattle rancher. Plus, water at a premium in California, officials pessimistic about water reserves. In southern gardening, what do you do during a rain delay? Gary knows. And in our feature, they thought their problems were about money. Turns out it was something different. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Jonah's in studio with an important update on a Farm Week story we aired a while back. Jonah?
Thanks, Mike. And yes, what started out as a story about a cattle farmer who'd served time in prison for what seemed like a relatively honest mistake actually turned into something a lot more serious.
Garland Joey Nelson, a Missouri feedlot operator accused of killing two Wisconsin brothers, recently pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. The Caldwell County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in northwest Missouri said Nelson, 28, of Bramier, admitted to shooting 34-year-old Nick and 24-year-old Justin Diemel, Wisconsin cattle producers, in July 2019 at Nelson's family farm. The brothers had traveled from their Navarino, Wisconsin homes to the Nelson farm to confront Joey Nelson about a $215,000 bad check he had sent as payment for cattle Nelson was feeding for the brothers. Nelson admitted during the hearing that he shot the 2 men, placed their bodies in barrels, and burned them. He dumped the remains of one in a pile of cow manure and the other in a mineral supplement bucket that in November 2020 was discovered inside a trailer sold to a man in Nebraska. While the possibility of the death penalty had previously been mentioned, a Missouri Circuit judge sentenced Nelson to 2 consecutive terms of life in prison without the possibility of parole. A number of other charges were dropped. Later, Nelson changed his plea in federal court to admit guilt on fraud and firearm charges. He will be sentenced for those federal crimes in March 2023. It won't be Nelson's first time behind bars. 9 years ago, he sold cattle without notifying FSA, a requirement when livestock is tied to farm loans. We interviewed Nelson for a detailed Farm Week story 9 months before the brothers were killed. For an ag fraud story about his experience serving time in prison for an agricultural crime. By that time, he'd spent 13 months at Leavenworth as a result of his fraud conviction.
So, Jonah, we met Joey Garland a number of years ago. At the time, he seemed like an inexperienced young rancher who just made a mistake trying to keep up with government regulations.
Mike, that's what it seemed like the situation was, and it would have been easy to arrive at that conclusion. But in that interview for the 2019 story, months before the Diemel brothers were killed, there may have been a red flag, and that one of his statements apparently rationalizing his selling of some of his cattle tied to the loan without letting the government know. Listen to this.
I thought, well, at the worst case scenario, I've done something that I broke a rule in a loan. Didn't commit a crime. I didn't, go out and rob a bank or anything like that. I mean, I broke a contract. Well, not when it's federal. You've committed some sort of fraud. They said that I'd set out from day one to do this. Well, I can tell you from day one, I didn't know what I was doing.
A year after that interview, we updated the story. Joey Garland was back under investigation, and authorities seem to have plenty of evidence against him in the disappearance of the Diemel brothers. Now, with Joey Garland's confession to the murders, it appears he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Mike?
Thank you, Jonah. Drought continuing to plague the country. Midwest drought leading to restricted barge traffic on the Mississippi River. In California, the world's 5th largest economy, drought still on everyone's mind with water levels dramatically below historical averages. Officials are concerned. Peter Tubbs has the story.
The past 3 years have been the driest on record in California, according to data dating back to 1896. Although the just completed 2022 water year was slightly wetter and cooler than the 2021 water year, it was still 24% below the historical average for precipitation. The state's reservoirs are at 69% of their historical average. With a third year of La Niña expected in 2023, water analysts are pessimistic about the state's water reserves in both the near and long terms.
This is our third drought in this century, and we have definitely been seeing more droughts and increasing impacts this century as compared to the last century, reflecting our transition to a warmer and drier climate.
The California Department of Agriculture estimates that more than 500,000 acres, or 5.5% of irrigated land, has been fallowed for the 2022 growing season. More acres may need to be left vacant to direct scarce water supplies to water-intensive crops, such as nut crops.
We can't just continue thinking of drought as something that happens occasionally and we go about our normal way of life once the drought is over. We really are transitioning to different conditions that we need to plan and adapt for.
Heavy pumping of water from underground aquifers has caused more than 1,200 wells to run dry for both residential and agricultural users. Fewer than 100 dry wells were reported in 2020.
I know we've had to drill a well on our property, but this is the first time the boys have had problems with their well. So I just think it's because it's been so dry this last year. We didn't get much rain, we didn't get much snowpack, and it looks like it's going to be the same thing this winter. So it's touch and go. We will probably have to drill another well.
Well drillers are in high demand, in some cases doubling the depth of new wells to reach dependable water aquifers.
I want to say for the past about 4 years, it's been almost nonstop phone calls, just due to the water table dropping constantly. It's something we can't fix it right now. It's something you can't change. So just nonstop phone calls, and all you can do is answer the phone and try to be there for them.
Without a dramatic shift in moisture patterns over California, water usage statewide will need to be reduced to support both 39 million residents and the state's huge agricultural sector. While California produces over 11% of America's commodities, agriculture is only 1.5% of California's economy.
And looking at the American West in the face of climate change, we're going to have very serious groundwater management issues that have been brewing for decades really come to the fore.
On the other side of the coin, rain generally plentiful here in Mississippi. What do you do when the weather gets in the way, and it does at times, of filming our Southern Gardening segment? Here's Gary Bachman with more insight.
Just like every gardener in the South, the crew of Southern Gardening also has to deal with the rain. So what do I do when I can't get in the garden because of the rain? I think about the plants I could be planting. Let's take a look at a few. Garden planting doesn't have to be hard. I like to use the same thriller, filler, and spiller container recipe for my landscape. Let me show you. Spiller plants are those ground cover types. Here are a couple great suggestions. Purslane is one of these plants that are perfect and forms a dense mat of drought-resistant color. And ornamental sweet potatoes are perfect for laying a gorgeous carpet of vivid and attractive leaves. These plants are vigorous and produce thick mats of color. Yep, it's still raining. Filler plants add body to the landscape planting. Colocaceae certainly fit the description of a filler plant. The leaves are huge with coarse texture and do fill in any open spaces in the landscape. And the coarse foliage of caladiums will fill any lower area with color. A wide variety can offer an explosion of colorful foliage. I'm always thrilled with the varieties of cutting zinnia. These are big plants that add excitement. With the range of colors including white, pink, yellow, and purples, these are perfect for cutting to be enjoyed indoors.
And to put a positive spin on a gardening rain delay, it gives you time for Garden Planning 101. Oops, time to go. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman. I hope you'll see me next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up, more mental health on the farm. We continue our farm stress theme, this time solving struggles in farm operation. We meet a couple that asked for financial advice, but it turned out there was something else lurking in the background. They got help from a group that gets hundreds of similar calls a year, and when they did, everything turned around. In the end, they expanded their operation, relieving the pressure points. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. That these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Once again, the market's trending upward.
That's right, and it was a pretty interesting way it happened, all things considered. You know, we've been seeing the markets go down the past several weeks, and now it finally came up again. We knew that was going to happen, but it did so in a very interesting way, and we'll get into it. But first, the numbers trending back up again, and then we look again at the wheat markets, and finally, an update on cattle. What major issue is causing producers to cull their herds? Markets trending up once again last week. Some prices the highest we've seen all year. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest loss, wheat, down nearly 43 cents. These prices just can't seem to find a happy medium. They jump up and then down again, and we'll look into it. Last week's biggest gain, soybean oil, up about 5.30 cents. Corn also up about the same amount. So, we all know what's been moving the wheat markets by now. Prices rise high, then drop about as much. We just can't find a stable price range. Market analyst Sue Martin says this has to do with planting acres, trading policies, and ultimately stocks.
As we ended the week, the Kansas City December contract closed near the 20-day moving average, and also on a trend line from the very lows that we've had. So it's at a good support, but the market hasn't even, now Chicago, we did make a 38% retracement on Fibonacci, but KC has not. And I think the market's got capability of pushing even farther than that. You know, you look at this stocks report that took everybody by surprise. I don't think hardly any of us anticipated the USDA would drop harvested acres and yield at the same time, but they did. So this next report that we get here next week is going to be rather important to see just how much they show for this crop as far as ending stocks, where we're at. And I think that we could possibly see the ultimate is the ending stocks drop under 600 million bushels. Wow. If that happens, it's the first time since 2000, I want to say 2013, 14, something like that. but also it will be the 6th year of a consecutive decline domestically and a 3rd consecutive year ex-China that we see global supplies drop.
The cattle markets, another sector with high prices. Markets closed last week with live cattle at the highest price we've seen all year. So, why is this happening? Well, we've been talking about it all year, and that's the ongoing drought in the Midwest, prime cattle grazing country. Michael Kelsey from the Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association breaks it down.
We're in really troubling times. It's weather-related and economy-related is two things I would say is what I'm hearing more than anything. And then as you look at the average age of the beef producer, not only in Oklahoma, but even across the country, but I mean, Oklahoma is not unique in that sense. The average age of the producer, whether you're in the cattle business or farming corn or whatever, we all know that age is creeping up. And so we're going to see a lot of generational transfer. And so sometimes the drought and the economy actually excels that in not a good way. Sometimes it can be good, but not necessarily. So water right now, drought, whether we're hauling water to cattle or trying to figure out how in the world to water the cattle, that's really tough. Plus then the forage basis, or I should say the lack of forages, because of the drought and even the outlook. We're a strong wheat pasture country, as you well know. We import a lot of cattle into Oklahoma, mainly from the southeast is where they primarily come from, Kentucky and south and so forth. Boy, howdy, it's going to be tough to do that this year because we're just not going to have the wheat pasture unless conditions improve. And so the outlook doesn't look very promising right now from a drought. And then you tack on the economy. And the economy, what I mean by that is cattle prices, you're talking to a cattleman, so cattle prices can always be better, right? I mean, they can always be better. But cattle prices really are pretty strong right now. Beef demand's really strong considering. But boy, howdy, when you factor in $4.50 diesel, and the supply chain challenges of where do I even get hay? What is corn going to cost? What are feedstuffs going to cost? How am I going to ship it in? All of those input costs are just really challenging, folks. And so we're hearing a lot of concern. We're also hearing a lot of selling. I would say right now, talking to Dr. Darrell Peel last week about this very question, how many cows have we sold in the state of Oklahoma? What's our cow herd, in other words? And we're probably he said, I'm going to kind of guess this, but it's 8 to 12%. I wouldn't disagree with him at all. And I think we're going to see another sale of cows because a lot of our members are telling us they don't have enough hay to get the cows that they still have through the winter. And so we may have to sell some more cows. So is it theoretically possible that we'll sell 20% of our cows in the state of Oklahoma? And I think the answer is yes. I hope not.
Kenny Burdine from the University of Kentucky gives some advice to those ranchers looking to cull their herds. He suggests the 3 O's, which refer to culling cows that are open, old, and ornery. He recommends looking at late calving cows. When the calves from these cows are sold, it loses money. He also says consider the size of the cow when they look at their weaning weights. Records are key to doing this. And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. In our feature story this week, another mental health theme, this one with a hopeful twist. It's hard enough to be in any kind of ag-related business, but when family members are in business together, well, problems can fester. Sometimes, though, there's an answer. Once again, here's Peter Tubbs.
I mean, it came down to, in the end, that either we were going to make changes or we were going to have to walk away from the business.
In 2016, Brandon Brown and his wife Rebecca had reached a breaking point with the milk bottling plant they had built in partnership with Rebecca's parents on their farm outside of Cortland, New York. As the business had grown, each household was expecting help from the other for daily tasks, and defining responsibility became a struggle. New York FarmNet was brought in to mediate the family's disputes.
So farms call us for a variety of reasons. They could call for financial guidance and coaching. They could call us for emotional support and communication assistance and building better interpersonal relationships among the family. So we really get a variety of phone calls throughout the year.
The first call for assistance is often difficult, and producers frequently don't understand where the problems lie.
Oftentimes folks call us asking for financial guidance because that's an easier thing to ask for help for and with on a farm. We get a call from a farmer saying they want financial coaching and analysis, but then we show up and see that the senior generation and the junior generation are fighting in the driveway. That's when our family consultants, they pick up on what's going on and they're like, okay, there's a little bit more going on here.
FarmNet's financial and family consultants work as teams, bringing different skills to the situation.
Our financial consultants have that farm business management. Some of them used to work in ag lending. They used to be farmers themselves and have retired. So we help them work through the nuts and bolts of the farm business management stuff. And then our family consultants help with that social, emotional, interpersonal communication work, because 97% of farms in New York are family owned and operated, and many of those family farms are multiple generations working side by side, and that's often where there can be disagreements and challenges and pressure points.
Generational disagreements brought the Browns to their emotional limits.
When we first started our business, we came back to the farm from 2 different jobs, my wife and I, and from day one we really never had anything in writing or what everybody's roles were on. It was kind of assumed what everybody's roles were going to be, but you know, as the business progressed and got bigger and different roles shifted and responsibilities shifted.
With help from FarmNet, they were able to sort out the details.
It got us talking, and we got to really see where everybody's heads were at, like what did everybody really want to do. So it kind of opened up conversation, and it allowed us to keep that conversation going.
The conversations allowed for a formalization of each person's role in the operation and agreements on how work across the farms would be compensated. The improved communication allowed the Browns to expand the dairy herd and add cheesemaking to their Trinity Valley brand. According to Downs, on many farms, what might feel like financial problems are, in reality, communication problems. A reluctance to hand over responsibility to a younger generation can compound a farm's challenges.
The family consultants picking up on those nonverbal cues can really help grease the wheels of open communication and building those interpersonal relationships, and even helping the senior generation turning over the reins to the junior generation, because that junior generation might be in their 60s and has never written a check or made an actual business decision for the farm. But in recent years, we've actually seen more farmers, farm family members, farm employees calling us and asking directly for assistance with emotional support and some of those mental health challenges that everyone has gone through in the past few years.
FarmNet receives over 300 calls each year seeking assistance and can have as many as 800 open cases at any one time. The group serves farmers in all 66 counties, including the 5 boroughs of New York City. But with dairy earning nearly half of New York State's agricultural receipts, it's not surprising that dairy farmers form the largest share of FarmNet's clientele. The daily demands of milking cows can create a special kind of stress. Enabling families to communicate their thoughts on the operation can help a farm move forward both financially and into the next generation.
So really for us, what we love to see when a farm family, quote unquote, graduates from FarmNet is a family that can have a functional business meeting, as in everybody has a turn at the table and everybody gets to speak their mind and they're allowed to speak their mind. And that those generations who might be working side by side are working well together.
The renewed partnership at Trinity Valley facilitated expansion on both the dairy and packaging parts of the business. A robotic milker was added, which reduced labor costs for the farm. An on-farm store was opened, which captures some of the retail dollars that had been going to the company's wholesale buyers. A corn maze on the farm had become both a source of tourism dollars and serve as a marketing platform for their milk and cheese products to the 10,000 visitors each fall. For FarmNet, turnarounds like Trinity Valley are common. Downs believes most of their clients improve their operation using the agency's consultants. In a typical year, their group serves over 700 farm families. FarmNet also receives an additional 300 calls annually from struggling farms across the state. The families that operate Trinity Valley see the assistance they received as invaluable.
Just that little step 6 years ago has made all the world of difference of the health of our business and the future health of the business.
It's great to see farmers who already have enough to contend with work out their problems successfully. Well, next time on Farm Week, another extraordinary episode of Extension Matters.
It's a breathtaking view above ground of an amazing underwater partnership between MSU Extension and the Mississippi Aquarium. A spectacular showcase of the extreme wonders of the Gulf Coast.
Visitors get up close and personal with creatures of the deep, the aquarium sparking their interest and curiosity. Diving deep, that's next time on Farm Week. Before we go, check out this massive pumpkin. It has set the record for heaviest pumpkin in North America at 2,480 pounds. Jamie Graham won the prize at the annual All New England Giant Pumpkin Way Off at the Topsfield Fair in Massachusetts.
His pumpkin broke the previous record of a little over 2,200 pounds. Graham named his pumpkin Bear Swipe. He said it's now the 4th biggest in the world and the 11th biggest undamaged pumpkin ever grown. He won $6,500 for first place. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. See you next week. Thanks for watching.